Well, I think people have been very impressed with the way that, for example, the German football team, the players themselves, Goretzka got that goal which made sure that Hungary were booted out of the Euros. Perhaps they can't be booted out of the EU, but they were kicked out of the Euros football tournament last week. And the guy who scored the goal posted on Instagram a picture of himself holding up a kind of heart symbol and saying love to all. And the message was pretty clear to Hungary that they're on the wrong side of the debate when it comes to Western Europe. And I do think that the discussion that's taken place in Brussels today will have a kind of long-term impact on Hungary, and that people will realise there might be a quick political gain for Orban to kind of, make bellicose statements in response, which might buoy up his supporters in Hungary. But I think over a longer period, I think that influence does seep down into member states of the EU. And perhaps one day the EU will become an important moral force in the world. I think at the moment it's not. It can't even stand up to, really obvious bad guys like Russia. It's busy signing up for this pipeline so that cheap gas can be pumped into Central Europe. Who cares the fact that the guy who's going to be profiting from that is having people murdered, assassinated and poisoned? The Europeans are too busy counting their money in the banks.
Ana Navarro, Pedro, speaking of money in the bank, you can hurt people in their wallets. We can show you the tweet of one crusading anti-Orban member of the European Parliament, Catalina Shea. She's been very vocal about, for instance, 600,000 euros in EU funds that have allegedly been funneled to Orban's son-in-law. Here in this particular tweet, she says, professional tip for the European Council leaders, stop subsidizing his corruption.
Well, that might be a lead to investigate if she can put forward some evidence or some beginning of evidence. Of course, it should be investigated, as some other members of the European Union are being under investigation every so often. But it doesn't apply only to Hungary. Within European, the problem is the contradictions of the European Union. See, here in this country where we are standing now, France, there has been laws that have been restricting the freedom of press as well. If you investigate a company now, you risk very, very heavily if you really use some information. So,
but a law banning the mention of homosexuality, that's a whole
That's
nother
not the
level.
same thing, but what I mean is there are contradictions in European Union in many fields, and they will pop out very, very, very fast.
Robert Parsons?
No, I agree. It's very good.
And by the way, the next presidency of the European Union after
Slovenia.
Portugal is Slovenia, which
Yes.
is also being accused of some of these problems with civil liberties.
Yeah, but I don't think you can put Slovenia in quite the same basket as Hungary at this stage. I mean, maybe on one or 2 points they're in alignment, but by and large, Slovenia doesn't fit into that pocket. I think it's essentially...
Emmanuel Macron mentioned it at his press conference.
Well, because on this particular issue, Slovenia appeared to take the side of Hungary, but I think in general, Slovenia has a reasonably good record.
This Friday, by the way, at that EU summit, there was what could be the closing of a 16-year-old chapter.
Okay, Dankeschön und herzliche Grüße, wo immer Sie sitzen.
Barring a change of schedule, it was Angela Merkel's last EU summit before Germany picks a new chancellor in next September's general election. It's interesting, Stefan de Vries, because we mentioned the Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte. We mentioned Viktor Orban. They're the ones who now have the longevity record after Merkel goes inside of the European Council.
Yes, indeed, they do. It's quite ironic that they're probably the biggest antagonists within the European Council. But indeed, Mark Rutte is probably also the reason why he spoke out so clearly, maybe not very diplomatically, as Anna just said, but he feels that he has a role to fulfill. He now has the credibility because he's there already has been there for 11 years. His country is doing extremely well when it comes to the economy. He sees that Europe is important. That's something that he didn't see earlier in his career, but he changed a lot in regard to his look or his opinion on the European Union. Yesterday, actually, he said during this doorstep statement, he said, we cannot allow people like Viktor Orban destroy our beautiful union. It was actually a moment that he came out of the closet, not maybe as a homophile, but as a Europhile, which is maybe even worse at least in Viktor in Hungary. But it is interesting indeed that he's taken the lead. It is also, of course, the fact that the Netherlands, has changed. The role of the Netherlands has changed because of Brexit.
So wait, hang on a second, Stefan, are you telling me? Stefan, are you telling me that when Merkel's not there, when there's a bit of an interregnum in Germany, it's not Macron but Rutte who's going to be the boss of Europe?
Well, the boss, I wouldn't say that. Of course, the problem with the European Union is exactly those national leaders. It is the member states. They are the part of the problem, not of the solution. But I do think that there's also a chemistry between Macron and Rutte. So Macron accepts a lot what Rutte says. And by the way, maybe Macron isn't there anymore either next year, nor Mark Rutte, by the way, because he's not. There's no government currently in the Netherlands. And it's not really entirely sure that he will come back as a prime minister in autumn. So maybe all the people we're seeing today at this summit will be gone in a year or so, maybe even sooner.